how do we connect people to something that they've never seen? Part of the way that we often try to connect people to nature is actually spend time in it. So we say, get out there and smell the flowers and touch the grass and do all of those sorts of things. But when we're talking about, A, a very long stretch of coastline, and B, something that people will potentially never see, it's underwater. And so part of the challenge that we're having from a behavioural science perspective is how do we get people to care for something and connect with something that they will never experience. We know that there are people that live along the reef that are already looking after it. So we want to understand who are those people, what are they doing, and then if we can understand what are some of the key actions and behaviours that we want people to do, we can then think about how can we get more people to do those things. Is we only have a limited amount of time. So quite often these interventions take years and years, sometimes decades, but with a limited pool of funding for a limited period of time, we've got to try to churn over as much as we can to address some of those questions quickly. The Great Southern Reef, because it's such a big stretch of coastline, there is lots of work being done to look after the reef in various ways, but it's done quite sporadically. So different universities, so in New South Wales will be doing some work, in Tassie they'll be doing some work, in WA but they haven't sort of pulled it together. And so we're now part of this Great Southern Reef Research Partnership that's aiming to kind of pull that together a little bit better so that we can actually start looking at the 8,000 kilometre stretch of coastline kind of as a whole. The partnership is universities that are kind of based along the reef, but it's also not-for-profit. NGOs are involved, as well as managers, so parks managers and local government departments. And we also got funding from the Ian Potter Foundation. And it was established to try to bring together the science, to try to get a more consolidated framework, I guess, to look after the reef. We know about coral reefs, we know about the great threats to the coral reefs based on climate change particularly. The Great Southern Reef is kind of like the little poor cousin that's never kind of got the coverage. But the Great Southern Reef is important for so many reasons. From a climate change perspective, those massive kelp forests sequester so much carbon. The diversity of biodiversity within the area is incredible. And one of the challenges with this area is as climate change happens and as the waters get hotter, we're finding a lot of species are migrating because they're trying to find cooler areas. But the mere geography, the geography of the area, they've got nowhere else to go. And we're trying to understand what the key risks to the reef are. And when we start to develop a kind of a behavioural intervention to get people to do more to protect the reef, we'll base it on those risks. But part of the challenge is it's such a long stretch of coastline, and the risks can be anything from something like climate change, but a risk might also be plastic pollution, or it might be people that go out on fishing boats are leaving their fishing line behind. And so political in the sense of trying to understand what can we actually influence, what can we leverage. So the partnership, the research partnership, is about trying to get more people involved, more people to protect, more people to kind of do things to stewardship type behaviours to look after the reef.